level up as designers by becoming better problem solvers. Some people want to level up as designers by becoming better at documentation. Some people want to get better at layout design, illustrative design. Like there's a lot of um, nuance to what leveling up means. So I think that's something that you should sit with yourself and kind of figure out what leveling up means to you as a designer, how will leveling up benefit you, etc. And some people also just want to level up to make more money, and that's like low-key my category because like money is life. So anyway, that is something I think everybody that's trying to like become better or level up should explore doing, defining what it means. So you have to define that. After that, you kind of, I think defining what leveling up means gives you perspective on what to do and how to do it. But I also feel like most of the things that we level up as kind of have like similar roles or similar ways to um to achieve. It's the same thing. Like it's like different leveling up reasons, kind of like if you want to make more money, or if you want to become better at problem solving, or if you want to become better at documentation as a designer. There are basic foundational things that you can do for all these things that you want to level up for, that are very similar. Like everything is, it's a foundational like path for everything. And one of the things that I think designers should do is,
Hi, Cynthia. We can't hear you anymore. I think she's having network issues. She should join us in like some time.
I'm so sorry, my network went out. Where did I stop, please? Where did you guys hear me last? Can someone like fill me in on that? I was talking for a bit and then I realized that I was no longer um online. Hello?
All right. Hi, we can hear you now. I think the last thing I heard was one of the things that we should. I'm not quite sure, but like the last sentence I heard was one of the things, and you just
Okay.
finished talking about leveling up or leveling what leveling up means for like different people.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for bringing me back to that. So like I was saying, one of the few things, I think I have a list of 5 or 6 things that I think that every designer should do, regardless of their reason for leveling up. It's basically like foundational stuff. I think it's practical and easy to replicate for any type of um, direction that you are going in as a designer. And one of those things is to learn to keep up with like the design community and the design trends. Can you guys hear me? Like just checking in to know if you guys can hear me. Awesome. Thank you, Augustine. So one of the ways I think I want to use myself as an example in this conversation so that it's easier for you guys to understand how it has helped me. So learn to keep up with trends. And by doing that, you simply kind of people follow trends in different ways. I like to consume content a lot. I like to consume a lot of content. And I do that by following designers that I think do great work or do so I have like a range of people that I follow for different reasons. I like follow people for illustration, design and inspiration. I follow people for um UI design and inspiration. I follow people for their UX problem solving ideas. And then I also follow people just for content. Like it's you have to have a reason to follow people. You can't just follow people for no reason. You have to find something that you like about them, and it kind of helps you ground you and helps you to have people that you you check in with mentally when you're like learning to like be a designer or like going in the direction that you want to go in, right? So you follow a few people, you consume their content, you maybe sometimes replicate their content because it helps you grow. So things like that also really helps. Following people and keeping like a good number of inspiration to keep like coming back to. So another one is I would say to consume a lot of design content. This is completely different from keeping up with trends. I consume content in different ways. A lot of people would advise you to read, and that is great and works a lot of the times. But I'm not someone that can hold, I don't have a great attention span. So I tend to consume much more like video content or audio content. That's something I can do because I tend to be able to do that while I do other things because I'm mostly usually working or doing like case studies that personal case studies. So I need content that I don't have to pay complete attention to that can just be like a background noise or things like that. So, but then I also use those content to like learn. Like I follow a few people on YouTube, like the Future Awards, things like that, and Abby Kongrick. I don't really. Let me find it. Let me find this designer so I can show you. I can share her with you. I think she does great work, and I think she's a great design content creator. Let me copy this. Okay. Okay, I just shared it in the chat box. Okay, so she is a brand designer and I follow her content because of her processes. I'm not a brand designer, but I awesome. But I love the way she breaks down her process and the way like the final product kind of ends up looking. I really like how put together everything is and how self-explanatory a lot of her content is. You guys should please check her out. She does really great work, and I also follow her podcast sometimes, and that helps me. Like she's very inspirational. I'm not trying to be like her, but I like her as a person, and I think she is a great designer. So that's something I tend to do, consume a lot of design content. And by design content, I mean more than just like your area of expertise. Um, I also I also consume illustration design content, even though I don't really do that for work. I do that for like personal reasons. I follow 3D design content, even though um I also am not a 3D designer. It's something I'm learning, but I'm not a 3D designer. But it's a thing I have interest in, and I think that like segue into like the next one, which is to prioritize your interests. So as a designer, even though we low-key have the same job and everything, we actually have our own foundational interests, right? Different people join design for different reasons, and different people join designs for from different backgrounds, right? I joined design because I wanted to do animation and I ended up not being able to do it. And design was like the second best thing, even though I love it now and I would not change it for any other reason. It was not my first choice, right? So because of I have a background of interest in animation, 2D design, anime, things like that, I tend to kind of like bring that those interests into my designs and bring those quirky like um ideas that I would have for like animation into my design also. So and it makes for a much more unique design experience at the end of the day. But it's always great if you prioritize your interests and allow them to how do I say, allow them to bloom as a designer. So if you know that before you became a designer, you had interest in maybe art or illustration, I would suggest that you also still explore that as a designer, because it also brings like it also allows you to bring a different experience. It brings a different perspective than that other people would not be able to bring. So if you have interest in pottery, there's always something that your quirky interest will bring to your team that you are not even aware of because you don't think it's that important, but it's important. Things that interest you are important because you think about them a lot, and they kind of like they help you create unique experiences. So there's also that. um can you guys hear me? Awesome, awesome, thank you so much. So the next thing I would say is to improve your your soft skills, right? So this one is more work related and not like a personal thing. Um, if you work on your soft skills and work on things that are not related to design per se, it makes you easier to work with. Um, that's a thing that I think I had to learn as a designer that worked in a company, right? I'm not really great with talking to people. I'm not really great at communication. I kind of like prefer to be on my own when I work. And if given the chance, I would not speak to any of my coworkers the entire week. As long as I just did my deliverables and they know that I have done my deliverables, I'm okay not speaking to anybody for a long period of time. But I realized that as a designer, and as a designer that wants to improve and wants to get better at the things that I do, I have to communicate every other time. I'm still not so great at it, but it's something I'm trying to I'm trying to learn how to do. Like you have to communicate with your manager, you have to communicate with your developer. You have to make sure that you're constantly communicating your thought process or the reasons behind the design, so that the developers that work with you understand your reasons for doing things. So that's kind of like it's one of the reasons why designers and developers have like a clash a lot of the time, is because they're not communicating enough, or the designer is not communicating their thought process enough, and that can be avoided. Clashes and bad developments at the end of the day can be avoided if you communicate as much as you can to your developer, especially during the design process. That's very important because you are able to know what and what not to do. um you not maybe not, not you you're able to collaborate. I think that's the best way to say it. Not that you're asking for permission to do anything. You're just able to collaborate better when you have communicated with your developer, communicated with your team, communicated with your manager, communicated with the CEO or the people that have like stakeholders on the project or conversation. That is very necessary. You also like this is still part of like the communication and like improving your soft skills section. You need to learn how to take criticism and learn from it. A lot of the times, because we're human beings, we do not have like a great bandwidth for knowing when something we did doesn't work, or knowing when something we did doesn't result to the best solution, right? And a lot of the times as designers, we think that criticism stops at the design in itself, but criticism also comes when design is pushed out and people use it. That is an experience that you have to experience as a designer for you to get better. It's one thing for your team to criticize, and it's another thing for the users of your platform to criticize. And it's something I had to deal with very recently as a designer at Nobase. So I designed a website and we pushed it out. I designed it and I didn't get any bad feedback. I got like mostly relatively like good, great feedback. But we pushed it out, and it turns out that the website is not as usable as we assumed it would be. And the we found out by using like data, we found out that people were not using the website to do the things we needed them to do. They were taking too long. It was not as explanatory as I thought it was. And I think at first I was overwhelmed by the amount of criticism that came with the bad design. I wouldn't say it was bad, it just didn't work, which means it was bad anyhow, sha. But like I I felt very overwhelmed with the amount of criticism from not just like the team, but from the users. And I realized just how hard it is to take criticism. I'm working on it now, and I'm making better decisions on the website design. But if I'm not, if it was hard, or if it's hard for me to like take criticism, I would have probably like crashed and quit my job, because that was a very hard like thing to like handle. Um, the next thing I would say, to level up as a designer, um, is to learn how to tell a story. So one of the things I really enjoy, um, aside from like my regular like design job and everything, I really love anime, and I really watching K dramas. And one thing I realized about why I like these things is because they are really great at storytelling. They they build a world, and like just kind of like experience it. And I think that's something we as designers need to know how to do. And by storytelling, it's not like a doesn't have to be in written form. It can be video storytelling, audio storytelling, um, illustrative storytelling. It's always just really great to know how to tell a good story, so that you can explain your ideas to the people that matter. Maybe it's the people that you are creating content for, not necessarily the users or of a platform. Maybe your followers on social media. You're trying to relay something to them. Maybe your latest case study or your latest interest, and you want people to know that, hey, I learned this thing and I'm really good at it now. I think the best way to give people the idea that you've grown in a certain area is to tell a good story about it. And that's why I love doing that a lot with my case study. That's why my case studies take like 6 months to finish, because I like really good like storytelling. Um, Let me see. Can you guys hear me? Just checking in. Can you guys hear me? Awesome. Awesome. So the next thing I think is really great for designers um is to create personal projects. As a designer, one of the first few things on your portfolio is going to be a personal project. It's not going to be a paid gig. So you have to get in the habit of constantly constantly having personal projects, constantly designing personal projects, because that's one of the things that you're going to put on your portfolio, or it's one of the things that you would use to show people that you know something and you can do something. And a lot of the times, I think it's great to collaborate on your personal project. Um, Go out of your way to collaborate with a developer, so that they can work with you on your personal project. Maybe if you want your designs to have like a much more unique feel, which I tend to do, I tend to not for my personal project, I tend to not use stock images or stock illustration. I tend to do everything by myself, because I find that to be much more rewarding, and it ends up like giving a much more unique design. But it's always great to collaborate with other creators. Sometimes you can collaborate with another designer, maybe a brand designer, even a UI UX designer, a product designer, an illustration designer, a video designer. There's a lot of things that you can do with personal project that you can't do with a paid gig. And I think a lot of designers kind of like don't take advantage of that. Your personal projects are where you can go crazy. So do it like whatever leveling up you want to level up as a designer is going to be done in your personal project. But then I think that that's also like aesthetic based. A lot of the times design is mostly like after, like the result of design is after the design. But what I'm saying is basically like, if your idea of leveling up is to become a much better like designer, aesthetic designer, I think it's great to have like personal project that you collaborate with other people on, because that helps you team build. It helps you have conversations that are challenging. It puts you in a position where your say doesn't, like your say is not the last say. It puts you in a position where you have to answer to other people. You have to be held accountable for maybe turning in a late design or not doing something properly. Like it helps you grow as a designer in a way that I don't think a lot of people understand. Um, the next thing is to stay on a job until you feel challenged and have something to learn. Uh, this is kind of dicey because it's a conversation about staying in jobs. Like I think nobody capitalism is shitty, so nobody exactly is excited about having a job in the first place. But if and I'm also probably not taking into account the toxic work environment, which is fair. Nobody is asking you to stay in a toxic work environment. But if you find yourself in a place that is conducive for you, that allows you to do the work that you enjoy doing, and also gives you time to do other work that you're passionate about, maybe personal project, I think it's always great to stay in those roles longer, because it puts you in a semi-relaxed state. As designers, I feel like we're always chasing like the best thing, and that is not always good, because it puts you at a disadvantage where you kind of don't learn as much as you can in a role, right? Like right now, I feel like um it's one thing to design an experience, and then it's one thing to see the experience being used. It's one thing to iterate on that experience and then push it back out and then see that iteration of the experience being used again. It's it's an experience to see a product get better and better after multiple iterations and multiple collaborations to make it work. So I think you have a lot of things to learn from staying in a job that helps you feel challenged and um, gives you something to learn. Like right now at Nobase, I'm learning every other day because I realized that as a designer, I'm not the best. Not that it was new. It's not a new realization, but I'm not the best designer. I don't think anybody is the best designer. There's just products and there's design. So to get better as a designer, not necessarily the best, you have to keep on iterating on products. You keep on pushing out products to see when they work and when they don't. And now the only way you know that you're a great designer is when a problem arises and you solve it. That is literally what a designer is. A designer is a problem solver. So if you don't stay long enough to um, solve an actual problem and you just maybe stay for a while and you go to another place, I don't think you learn as much as you can than staying longer in a job and fixing more problems, especially with data that is now like compounded, right? At a new place, you have to learn like a lot of other things before you can start creating. So if you stay longer in a place, it's much more easier for you to use the learning that you've learned from the past to kind of like fix the future problems. Mm, okay. Um, let me see. The next thing I want to like um touch on is to learn a lot. So one thing I tend to do a lot is I am always almost constantly learning. And it's not exactly the best thing. I use learning to like distract myself from a lot of things, but I'm also constantly learning. I'm also constantly like curious. Okay, so maybe not learn a lot, but maybe be curious about things. Be curious about how something works. Be curious about how to do something, because that means that your brain is constantly doing work. Not again, it's not always great, but if you're constantly curious and constantly learning, your brain is always solving for problems, right? As a designer, as much as I enjoy UI design. A lot of the things I also do are not exactly UI based, like illustration design. I do that a lot and I enjoy it. It's part of my own design process. That's what me I define as leveling up, being a better illustration designer, because I tend to mix have a mix of like images in my designs, and I tend to also do them myself. I don't think I have a design on my portfolio that I have not like done myself from start to finish, including the illustrations. So that's something I'm curious about. I'm curious about illustrations, so I learn illustrations. I'm currently curious about 3D design, so I'm learning 3D design. I'm co- I'm I'm curious about like web development, so I'm learning Webflow. It's not anything I need really as a designer. I don't really need to learn all these things. It's just things that keep me curious, like things that I have interest in. So maybe not be curious in general, which also is great, but be curious in things that you find interesting. If you find illustration design interesting, be curious there. If you find 3D design interesting, be curious there. If you find UX writing interesting, be curious there. I also think, okay, so be curious, yeah. And then the next thing is to get better at UX writing. So there's something I feel like a lot of designers don't focus on, which is fair because UX writing is an entire like job title on its own. It's not easy to do, but I understand. But I feel like if we get better at UX writing, it kind of like enables us to create better design, because design content is king, and design just kind of follows the content. Even though people think it's like the other way around sometimes, I think it's like a fair balance of the both. I don't think anything comes before the other. I think it's supposed to be a collaborative effort. But yeah, UX writing would not would look at no actually design would not exist without good UX writing. So that's something that I think a lot of designers should maybe not. You don't have to learn it completely, but you should have foundational fundamental like knowledge about UX writing, because that's a really great way to um to level up as a designer, right? Because it means that your portfolio and personal project or gig projects are going to have really good content, and content is king. So you have to get better at UX writing. That's very necessary. Um, hmm. Okay, so another thing, I think the last thing that okay, fair. The last thing I'd like to maybe the last two things I'd like to say is to have personal interests. Interests that have nothing to do with work. Interests that have nothing to do with maybe design. Just interest in general about things that kind of make you happy. For example, I have interest in pottery, the clay thing. I have interest in that. I have interest in um art. So I have a few things I have interest in, maybe gaming, things like that. Have interest outside of your work. Have interest outside of design, because as much as I'm saying this not for work, but it also helps you to have a personality outside of the work that you do, because it means that you can take the experience from these things and somehow they pour into your actual work. But that's not what I'm telling you to do. I'm just telling you to do because you're supposed to do other things outside of work. Um, Design is kind of addictive. Nobody likes to talk about it, but design is something that people kind of pour themselves into a little bit too much, and it becomes like the entirety of their life, the entirety of their personality. You need to build yourself outside of the things that you do for work. You have to become your own person, right? You have to have things that you enjoy. I know that it feels very noble to say, like, obviously you have to do all these things, but a lot of designers kind of forget that they should have personal interests that have nothing to do with design, that's not quirky or as interesting to other designers. Like, you don't have to have similar interests with other designers. You have to just be your own person. If you like going to maybe the beach or the gardens, or just, you have to have a life as a designer, a maybe cluster of interests that doesn't have to do it work, because that's very necessary. You have to experience life. You have to go outside. You have to live to create good design. You cannot you cannot design in isolation. You cannot design on your own. You cannot design without having lived experience of other things, right? Because design is literally to take from life and make into something. That is what design is. So if you're not living life, I don't think you would have a great design. I don't think you'd be able to design good things, because where's your inspiration coming from? So, and the last thing I want to talk about is to take as much and as little inspiration from other designers as possible. um as designers, we kind of regurgitate other people's work, which is fair, right? It's understandable that your work is coming from maybe someone that inspires you, or someone that you look up to. Completely fine. But like I said, if you don't have your own lived experiences, um if you don't have your own personality, you would tend to just, you will not have your own voice in your design. Your design will be voiceless and a replica of someone else's work. And that is not a good place to be. That is not a good thing, right? Even if you think someone's work is the best work in the world, you must not do a copy and paste. You must not do a copy, small edit and paste. Something has to, your work has to come from within you. Like it has to have personality. It has to be something, with or without you, of course. But like, your work should not be the replica of someone else's, or three four people that you find interesting, even though that's a low-key thing like an artist, which is also fair. But um you need to have your own style, or your own way of working, because you are somebody. You cannot pretend to be someone else, no matter how much you find them intellectual or creative. You have to be your own creative. You can take from people, but you must not take too much. But you must also not take too little, because again, design is honestly a regurgitation of everybody's work. Like, everybody's eating everybody and pouring out the same thing. So that's why a lot of the times nothing looks very, very unique or interesting, except it's maybe anti-design or brutalist design, which honestly is not even on any design rule. But even brutalist design and anti-design look the same now, because everybody's just copying everybody's work. So you have to learn how to have original ideas, and it's not easy, but it's easier when you're not constantly looking at other people's work. And that also kind of like leads us to the last thing, which is not to compare yourself to other designers. I get that it's very easy to kind of like fall into the habit of looking at other people's work and then looking at yours, but it's not something that I would advise doing constantly. It helps some people, it puts them into like a state of um constant chasing of, getting better. They want to get better. So they compare themselves to a designer that they admire, and they're like, this person's work looks like this. Jesus, was I gone? When was I gone for? Because now I just realized I've been out for a bit. Hello, you can hear me?
Hi, we can hear you now. We couldn't hear you for some minutes.
For minutes.
Some minutes, yes, we couldn't hear you.
Guys, I've been talking since. So, hey,
Oh,
when did you guys hear me last?
we were talking about comparison, comparing
Okay,
yourself with.
that's not minutes now. That's not minutes now. God, I was so scared. I was like, I don't remember what I have said. But yeah, did you guys hear me say that I wanted to share something with you?
No.
Okay, so where did you guys hear me last? Because now I have to like bring myself back there because I was going to share something. I was speaking about sharing a profile page, Behance page with you guys.
I can't remember exactly. If you can remember exactly, can you please drop it in
On
the chat?
Okay, yes, if you can remember exactly, please drop it in the chat. But I was speaking about how you must not compare yourself to other people because everybody's coming from different parts of life and different like experiences. And I was also referencing how earlier on in my design journey, I would look onto people and compare myself to them, not knowing that they have been designers for a few more years than I have, and it put me in um a state of sadness because I was wondering like when my designs would get to the level that theirs were. But then I realized recently that a lot of the times the designs that you find really aesthetically pleasing or you think work really well are designed by people that have been doing that for a long time and have also not been so great at it. They also got better because they kept practicing and they got more experience. And I was going to show you guys. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. So yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for like these comments. I appreciate. But yeah, I was talking about how I think I've done a really great recap anyway. But yeah, that's what I was saying. That um comparing yourself to other designers is not a great place to be because uh there's everybody has different experiences in life, and just the same way you are maybe in your first year of design, someone else is in like their fifth year or their 10th year of design. Like I met somebody recently that has been in a designer or has had interest in design for almost 15 years. And I was like, bro, like I'm your sister, I'm your younger sister. And it's if you see someone's design on social media, you should not be making a straight comparison, even if they are on the same level with you by like years, and if they are also like maybe a beginner or a semi-beginner. It's like everybody is different, so you should not be looking onto other people for validation or um for how do I say it? The best way I can say it, you should not look at other people to rate them as you're rating yourself. Even if maybe you started the same year, doesn't matter, right? Because they have a different life experience than you do. You have your own path to walk. So you must not look at other people and compare yourself and constantly ask yourself why you are not like them, because they are also not like you, and nothing is wrong with them not being like you. So why are you looking at other people and um trying to trying to compare yourself and figure out where you are going wrong, even though you're okay, you're just okay. It's okay to just be okay, by the way. You don't have to be the best, you don't have to be the greatest. So there's also that, even though that's such a funny thing to say when we're talking about leveling up, sha. But yeah, try not to compare yourself. And one of the things that kind of like made it dawn on me that people people like design is a constant like learning phase, and it's a thing where everybody that is really good now used to be bad. Like it used to be really bad. And the best way I can say it is my favorite design studio is Kubeto. I have a few other favorites, but they are the ones that I think I really enjoy a lot. um this is their Behance portfolio. if you check their Behance portfolio and you check to their first few designs, right, in comparison to their latest design, you realize that everybody's coming from somewhere. Nobody's coming into design knowing what the fuck they are doing, right? We're just, yay, Kuberto, yes. We're just vibing. Like for the first few years as designers, we're vibing. We don't know what the shit is happening. We're just doing our best to stay afloat. That is it. Nobody knows what they are doing for now. And I don't think you should over critique yourself as a designer to match up to people that you don't know and you don't know where they're coming from. Never compare yourself. Never do a side by side with you and someone else. That's not a good thing to do. But yeah, you can check out Kubeto's website and Kubeto's thank you so much. The Kubeto's portfolio, and you will see that their first few designs, even me say I'm like, guy, why it's not great. But if you see their most recent design, you see the amount of growth that the studio has, like, experienced, the amount of aesthetically pleasing work that they have now in comparison to how they started. It's it's crazy, right? But then even if they also didn't get that much better, it doesn't matter as long as what you do work. Like, by better I mean aesthetically, right? There's a market for everybody, right? Um and i think and I think sometimes we kind of like want our work to be the most shareable, or want our work to be the most looked upon with admiration. And that is great. It's a great thing to want. It's a great thing to feel and experience your work being something everybody kind of like looks back on and it's like, oh wow, that person did great work. But I also need you guys to know that it's not it doesn't have to be like, that's how simple I can put it. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be your work, and it just has to be good work. It doesn't have to be the best. It doesn't have to be the most admirable. It doesn't have to be the most put together. It just has to be your work, and it has to be you constantly putting it out. I know I said like the comparison thing was the last thing, right? But a very last thing, this very last thing here is to always put out work. Which again, me, I feel like I'm guilty of not doing this as much. But I think as designers, it's a good thing to always be putting things out. It's a good thing to always have something out there for people to look at and maybe critique and tell you this was good, this was not so good, or maybe not even a comment at all. It helps you to kind of like later, when you're feeling not so great about your work or your journey, you go back and you realize just how much work and effort you've put into yourself and put into your work, right? It's always great to put out content. Again, very guilty of this because I tend to be very perfectionist and I don't put out content that I feel like, if it's not perfect, I would not put it out. That's the best way I can say I do it. So I'm very guilty of this, right? Um but I try my best to maybe put out like passive projects that I don't plan on putting my portfolio. I try my best to just do random shit and post because that helps me like keep interest in design, even though I have a full-time job. It helps me keep interest in design that doesn't have to do with work. Do you understand? But I tend to always overthink and have my work be perfect before I put it out. And that means that someone else that is not as perfectionist as I am is getting more work than me because they are constantly letting people know that, hey, oh, I'm a designer or I do design. And me, I'm here, I'm waiting 6 months or 8 months to post a design because I feel like it has to be perfect. But that's not what I think anybody should be doing. Your work doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be your work. It just has to it just has to be something. Do you understand? Like, you have to put something out there to I think putting your work out there validates your work. It's 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 a constant reminder to yourself and everyone else that you are doing something. That's the best way I can say it. You're doing something, you're constantly doing something. Um, and it doesn't have to be a perfect something. It doesn't have to be the best something. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't even have to be great. It just has to be something that you're putting into the universe and reminding everybody that this is something that you're doing. This is something that you could help them do. This is something that they would benefit from if they paid you. So um that is definitely something. I think every designer that wants to level up should be doing, constantly putting their work out there, constantly putting themselves in a state of creating and pushing out work that people will see and that we put like work out there. You guys, my network doesn't want me to talk today. I'm so sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm ending like my entire episode on. If you guys have any questions, I would love to have them on.
If you have any questions, you can unmute and ask. Thank you.
Hi, Cynthia. Good evening.
Hi, Donald.
Um, my name is Donald. Good evening, everyone. My name is Donald. I'm a product designer. I'm
Hi.
almost I'm almost a year into product design. So at this point, I've gotten like I'm currently in the process of a gig, like my first contract role. But I still like have like
Congratulations.
thank you. I still have like the desire to continue learning and like you said, leveling up. So like I know I can call myself a good designer, but I need courses like or materials that will help me like just be better because I feel like you can always get better. Like just do you have recommendations
Mm.
or links or how do you go about it? Especially courses. Because I really resonate with structured learning. I feel I tend to learn more when it's like structured. So I like courses more.
Structured.
So yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Okay. This is actually very interesting because I am not as structured a learner as I would like. So a lot of the things I learn kind of like feel very scattered. But I take a lot of courses, and one of the courses I take and have taken recently has been on awards. Let me share it with you. So I really like awards because they have people that I kind of like admire, and I check out their content a lot. So they have this academy where you can learn. I'm coming. You can learn. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to find one to send to you. You can learn a lot of like I think they mostly do like web experiences. And that's something I've been very interested in recently. This is one of the courses I bought. It's about creative portfolios and powerful like visual language for brands online. So it's I think as a designer you should also be learning brand design. A lot of people don't agree, but some do. But brand design is something that I think would help you really well as a designer. But also let me share another one for like particularly to product design here. Aha, found it. Product thinking. Uh, So I would recommend these two courses um, for structured learning, right? And there are a few other courses on Domestica that I would suggest for you. I don't know, maybe you reach out to me on my Twitter and I will send them to you. Yeah. But then if you also don't want to do paid courses, exactly, I was going to suggest free YouTube courses. I think I have a playlist that I can share to you guys. I don't know where it is yet. I don't know which account it is yet, but I can share a playlist maybe on my Twitter, and or if you need it, you can just text me. I can share that to there.
Okay, thank you. My second question was is concerning something you said, um, like like web experiences. So
Uh-huh.
let me give my situation breakdown right now. Um, I started the contract role is a mobile app redesign, and like during the course of it, so it's about like some weeks now. During the course of it, I tend to like designing mobile experiences more, like mobile applications and stuff like that. But I'm conflicted because I want to be like an all-round designer that I can get like I can fit into like mobile design experiences, web design experiences. But on the other hand, I feel I can like just double down into like a niche, maybe like so I can become better because some people say when you um focus on one particular aspect or a niche, that's like when you get like extremely better. So I don't know what you think about that, like doubling down or like coming down to like a particular niche and just mastering that particular art. I don't know if you understand. But yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear
Can you hear
you.
me?
But okay. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, so Donald was asking about whether you should niche down or be a multitasker, basically, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so it depends on what you want to do. I feel like niching down actually makes sure that you are able to work on experiences that you actually enjoy, and it makes you become like a, how do I say it, a figurehead in your niche, like in your area of expertise, right? If people know that if you want a great website design or mobile design experience, go to Donald. Means that a lot more people will recommend you for that specific thing. And a lot of the times, a lot of people actually have that problem more than we know. So I think it's a matter of like what you want. If you niche down, you might not make as much money in the beginning, but when you become better, when you become like a bit of a startup, what do you call it, um, neighborhood name, where basically if anybody wants to do something, they know that it is you that they are going to recommend or it is you that they are going to go for. You make more money in the long run. But as a multitasker, you will make more money in the beginning, but it's going to drop down because you are working on a lot of projects and you don't have a brand identity as to what you do. So basically, like in the beginning, it looks like you're making a lot of money, but you're not. So I think it's better to niche down. But that's advice that I personally wouldn't take. But it's better to niche down um, for the reasons that you've already stated. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. I'll text
Awesome.
you concerning the resources, the domestical cost on Twitter. So thank you very much.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
thank you
Awesome. You're
for the
welcome.
session. It was really, really, really insightful.
I'm so glad.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think
We'll
someone
continue with
else
the
has a question.
question. Yeah, because of time. So if you
Um,
have any, please ask. Yeah, you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
Okay, good evening, Cynthia. Good evening, everyone. Okay,
Hello.
yeah, good evening. Yeah, so along during the course of the of when we were talking, you said something, talked about like you working on projects and you trying to level up and as well combine that with your work. Yeah, I'm a product designer and I really have lots of work on my table because I work with a fintech company. So my question is, how do you try to create time for yourself to work on your own top skill? To work on your because I also have other goals apart from just doing product design. I have other things I want to go into, motion and all that. Now, how do you try to combine all these things together? How do you create time for yourself to combine all these things together and also work on your company work does not suffer as well as your own personal work and passion? That's my question.
Mm, okay. So this question is actually a bit dicey because it would seem that it's about personal responsibility, but I don't think it entirely is. Not having as much time for your own personal project means that your work is taking up more space than it should, like your day job is taking up more space than it should. And that's also because there are no like healthy boundaries between your 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 work life and your after work life, right? um a lot of the times I want to say the reason why I think I'm able to do more things than more things aside from work is because my work kind of allows me to. um I'm going to like get into the other parts, but like my work is something that I can give as much space and then do my own thing, right? It's not choking as much. Even though I do a lot of work, it's not something I cannot manage. Some people have work that they cannot manage. That's the best way I can say it. Like I am able to do other things because the work I have is manageable as much as it is. It's something that I can give space and time. Maybe I know that I'm going to be done with my day job by 5. I tend to get into it till like 7 or 8 in the evening. But after that time, I'm not going to go back into work unless I feel like it. So that's also something. If your work is something that you're always doing, especially now that we have like remote jobs where your work doesn't end when you leave the office, it's harder for you to create that like boundary and balance because it feels like they're texting you around like 9 p.m. in the night. Are you not supposed to be doing this work by now? So it's going to give you like a lot of stress. But the place I work at don't like make me feel like that I have to work past my work time. I don't know if that helps. So I'm able to balance it out. But then the other part is also prioritizing, right? If you if you prioritize or can prioritize the personal things that you want to learn or the personal interests that you want to have, it becomes easier for you to create boundaries for your work. Does that make sense? Like it becomes easier to say, okay, I'm prioritizing maybe watching a tutorial for 2 hours and then maybe watching a movie or um, learning a new course about maybe illustration or 3D design later in the evening. That means that I will have to stop working for this day job by 6 or 7 or 8 or take a break in between, do my thing, come back to it, and then take a break again. So it's prioritizing helps you create boundaries. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right.
If you guys have any
That,
other questions, please ask or I don't know.
that
Anyone.
would be the last question for this
Awesome.
session. You can reach out to Cynthia on her social media handles. They can reach out to you, right?
Yes, they can.
Okay. The links to her Twitter and LinkedIn accounts are in the chat, so you can follow her, connect with her, and then message her if you want to. Thank you so much for this session. It was really insightful. I learned a lot of things, and
Oh my
I
god,
hope
thank you.
that I actually, um, you know, act on all the things that I heard today. Thank you guys for joining us today. We
Thank
have
you so
another.
much for having me.
All right, you're welcome.
Have a
We'll be
great
having
night, everybody. Bye.
on. Bye. Good night.
Bye.
We'll have another session on Sunday by 8 p.m. You can follow us on our social media handles to know the designer and what the person will be talking about. See you guys next Sunday. Bye.
Bye.